never want to learn about. So the idea for you is, how do I ever even consider energy investments when in fact it seems complex? It seems kind of out of the ordinary. Well, that's the real solution. Find the expert, one that you trust and believe, one that you know has the experience and expertise. Find the company that has the track record of performance, and then ask them one simple question. Are you going to help me to be more educated and informed so I can comfortably invest in a new asset class, not for today, not for tomorrow, but for the next 5 or 10 years? And that's really what Eckard Enterprises has been doing for the last 7 years, is going overboard to make sure you're well informed. All right. A visual of these little green, yellow, and red basins, it's a buried Grand Canyon. These were essentially large geographical formations like the Grand Canyon today that were developed 100 million years ago. It was eroded out by fluvial movement. As it began to backfill, as the oceans came in, they filled up layer by layer by layer over 100 million years. The yellow arrows indicate kind of different individual geological deposits. And because it did that, it became trapped, almost like a safety deposit box. Each one of these formations, like in the case of Oklahoma, what we call the Anadarko Basin, or West Texas, the very famous Permian Basin, these areas cover 40, 50, 60 million acres, the size of the Grand Canyon, that over 100 million years were layered and full of oil and gas. No longer am I really worried about a geologist telling me, hey, you ought to drill in this exact location. Now it's more of a combination between the geologists telling us where these basins are located, where they are positioned, along with the engineering and the pure IT or technology side of it telling us the best way to extract it.
So Troy, let me ask you this, just because I get stuck in my head from when you started on this explanation that you had a 60% chance of having a dry well or not enough production back in 09 and 10.
Yes.
Which means even then you had to make a lot of investments to get one that paid off. If you just did one investment, you're more likely to lose everything. You know, just to beat the odds there, you had to make at least a few investments to have a shot. But what is that at now with all this technology of where we're at now, and even maybe Eckard's experience in, like, what's the percentage of success when you go and drill?
We have been actively pursuing the current business plan since middle of 2018. We've not had a dry hole in almost 7.5, 8 years. We've not had a single. We have ownership in 7,700 wells. The wells that we participated in drilling, we have one that I know of out of our 75 wells that probably won't reach economic payout, and was the first well we drilled in 2018 with Exxon. It was kind of an experimental well. We took a small piece of it, but it's part of our track record. And the reason why it's happening, typically when you tried to drill a vertical well back before the horizontal, you would ask a geologist to give you a 7.5-inch hole the size of a paper plate, and then try to drill straight down with all the twists and turns that a typical drill bit will do, and land in the middle of the river at the bottom of this canyon that might be only 80 foot wide. So between drilling errors, guys that were on the rig, that were roughnecks, not the most educated guys out there, skilled, right? It was a very precarious business, which is why, as a country, in 2008, we were running out of oil and gas. We were down as low in total production a day in the U.S. in 2009 as we were in 1941. Wow. We literally were running out of oil and gas, which is why oil ran to $145 a barrel. But I've always said we could solve cancer tomorrow if there was enough profit to solve cancer that would outpace the money to spend on oncology, cancer care, and et cetera. We don't have a financial incentive to solve it, so we don't. But when oil and gas jumped to $145 a barrel, these oil companies, Exxon, these majors said, look, we can now try to spend money to drill wells using horizontal drilling and fracking, and then let's perfect it, and let's streamline it like a manufacturing process. So that's what they've done over the last 15 years. That's what they've done. They've learned how to drill faster. Wells that used to be drilled 2 miles down and 2 miles out, call it $8.5 million well, would take them 30 to 40 days to drill it down 2 and out 2 miles. Now they can go down 2 miles and out 2 miles in about 11 days. Wow. Wells that used to take 35 days to frack, meaning inject sand and water, could have taken 28 to 30 days. They can do it in 4 days. So as the industry has progressed, it's made investing in energy that much safer. So I would say that the real risk is not the participation in horizontal wells. The risk is always the who. who's got your money?
Yeah.
Are they an expert? Do they know what they're doing? Are they giving you fair trade terms? And I think that's important to always remember, probably in any investment, whether it's a CPA firm, it's a custodian like yours, it's always the who. I had a billionaire as a partner for years, Matt, and he told me a long time ago, 20 years ago, he said, Troy, here's the way I look at it. Your deal is irrelevant to me. I got to know you're the person I can invest my money with. Until I get to that comfort level, I don't care how good a project, asset, or idea you have, I will not move forward. And he meant it. And I was partners with him for almost 20 years. And I got to tell you, I learned that, and that's what I apply to my own investing. So I step across the counter into the listeners of our conversation today, and I say, "Oh, pretty map. Thanks, Troy. Looks great. Grand Canyon, little yellow arrows, very pretty. Looks nice and go." But I want to know who Troy Eckard is, who Eckard Energy is, who Eckard Exploration is. I want to know why Troy takes his time to allow private high net worth investors to invest in his projects. If he's that good, why isn't he a miniature Chevron? Why is he a miniature Exxon? And these are legitimate, valid questions. And so part of the education is not just telling you how it works, it's telling you why am I spending and investing my time educating and attracting new investors.
Yeah.
We can touch on that as we go through the presentation.
Yeah. Let me ask this if I could, and you can jump
Sure.
around any spots you have in the presentation as you like, but let's stay on this macro, because I want to get to some of these micro questions here quickly.
Yeah.
And when I say micro, like, how do I choose the right operator? What type of return expectations should I have? What are the tax incentives and the different investment options? If I'm like, all right, I want to do some oil and gas and add that to my portfolio. Should I use a self-directed IRA or non-IRA money? Should I do a little bit of both? How do I analyze a specific operator? What do I look for? How do I make sure I'm not getting ripped off or getting some scoundrel out there that's just been ripping people off for decades? I want to get to that because I think that's really critical. But I want to hit a couple other like macro things on the front end because, and this is what I'm just trying to understand from investing here is if I'm interested in investing in oil and gas, you got a company, you guys are out drilling, you're out extracting once you find stuff, I presume. But is there like what point do I invest? Am I investing and it's like, well, we think there's oil here, or am I investing in we found oil, and here's how much we think is there. Like, how much info can I have, and what are my risk options there? Are there different ways I can invest?
Yeah. So you
Stages.
asked a lot of questions in one, but I'm going to summarize it this way. Two or three critical things happened in the oil and gas asset class space that have really made it so much more of a major advantage for investors today. Number one, because of the internet, we now have access to data we didn't have even 10 years ago. So all these different programmers and software designers, they design the ability to scrape data out of the different courthouses and the different public filings. We did not know how Exxon drilled its well 12 years ago, but everything has to be filed because you're filing a permit, like if you're building a building. So data is
Mm-hmm.
always filed, but how do you get your hands on that data? So there's been massive amounts of different services, service providers that allow you to find out data. We can tell you every well in the US, when it was drilled, how it was drilled, and every detail from Exxon to Chevron to Marathon to whoever's remaining, right?
Mm-hmm.
The reason that's important is if you just take a look at the picture on your screen, if Exxon drilled to the right, Chevron's in the middle, and Diamondback's over here to the left side, each one will have their own peculiar way of drilling and developing. And then you got three horses in the race, and you're deciding, well, Exxon's better because they have a better jockey. Okay. Well, Diamondback's better because they have a better horse. But in the middle, we have Chevron, and they have an average jockey with an average horse, but they're winning the race because their wells produce better because of whatever nuance they produce. So, from an investor standpoint, and this is really critical, what you touched on is
Mm-hmm.
absolutely a critical aspect, and I'll tell you why. The average well horizontally drilled now costs almost $9 to $10 million. 85 to 90% of these oil and gas sponsors out there are trying to raise $1 or $2 million at a time. You can't even buy the cattle guard or the gate or the tanks for that well. So they're not in the oil and gas business. They're just a couple of guys who want to make $1 million a year by screwing investors over, offering a small piece of the pie. It truly is a separation now from what it was 15 years ago. You now have virtually no middle class. It's either you're a big boy player or you're a little pissant nobody. And I don't mean that disrespectfully, but that just goes, right? So when you say as an investor, how do I know which operator? You don't know when you won't know because you don't have 4 decades of expertise. What you want is you want a team like Eckard. We got 58 people in our company, 3 geologists, I think 10 landmen, 9 accountants. We got engineers, we got geophysicists, we got consultants. And what we're doing is we're looking at not just one area. We've looked at like all 8 basins. We've analyzed them. Then we've done a microanalysis within those basins based on geology, rock, production, quality, et cetera. And then we analyze it based on operating. We say, in this area, we want to be in a continental resource as well. We want to pay this much per acre, and this is how much oil and gas reserves we think we're going to get because we have the petroleum engineering reservoir analysis that tells us what the last 100 years of wells production has done. So it is very, very analytical. 9.9 out of 10 people who call any investor about oil and gas probably didn't even have a geologist hired, has no software, doesn't subscribe to it. So the reason why this asset class is so difficult is because most people, they love the romance, like the Landman show, right? They love the romance. It sounds really cool. And hey, I'm going to throw 100 grand in this well. You might as well go to the parking lot and set it on fire. You're going to lose your money. Okay. So Eckard's plan, this was very simple. We recognized that the oil and gas industry hates private investors. Watch, they hate them. They only sell you stock because they need to raise money to go out and drill their own wells. But you're just a pain in the neck. You come to the shareholder meeting, they don't want to hear from you, right? The oil and gas guys, they think money is dumb. And then the guys with money think oil and gas guys are crooks. So you have almost like this love-hate relationship. So I built my career saying, what if I understood the oil and gas extremely well, but I also was in the shoes of the wealthy, accredited investors who want to invest. And I said, why don't I allow these investors to invest directly ownership into mineral rights and wells with an assignment? They have title, they have a purchase sale agreement. They're not in a partnership, they're not an LLC. They own 1% of a well that Exxon owns 99% in. And the reason that's important is when you participate the way Eckard offers it, we're in the same cost, the same structure, the same everything that Exxon is. The only thing the investors do is pay Eckard a small fee for participating and bringing that together, right? So it really allows you as an investor, you don't have to choose the right operator. You don't have to choose the right part of the basin. What you have to do is say, Troy, show me what you've been doing 6 years. Show me how you've done. What have you done? And then you can get into the particular nuances of that investor, whether you say, do you have a high enough gross income? You need tax write-offs? Oh, no, I'm retired. Okay. But you have money in self-directed IRA. Yeah, I have a lot of money in my IRA. Did you know that you could actually buy mineral rights in your IRA? It has no holding cost. It has no capital costs, no cash calls, no debt. And it's into a check into your IRA every single month for the next 25 to 100 years. I had no idea. Did you know you could do a 1031 exchange out of traditional real estate when you sell that house or that building or that hotel or that apartment, and you can roll that in a 1031 into oil and gas mineral rights? Oh, I had no idea. Did you know you could participate this year, 2025, in drilling and participating in working interest with about a 99.9% chance of hitting a commercial well that'll pay you out in 36 checks or less? You'll get 80 to 90% tax deduction this year. You get your money back over the next 36 months, and then you could sell your production 3-4 years cash flow forward, do a 1031 and roll it right back into minerals, or take that money and roll it right back into traditional real estate. And what this has become, because of the low risk nature of drilling, what this has become is an absolute maximum tax advantage process if you can think about it as an investment class and not like you're going to Vegas to throw 50 bucks on blackjack. Most investors treat oil and gas like they're going to go throw 50 bucks, 50,000 on oil and gas, cross their fingers, hope they win. I can assure you, you got about a 99% chance of losing your tail if you don't approach it as serious you do as real estate, equities, public equities, crypto. If you don't take a serious approach, you're going to lose your money.
On the slides here, I think my team's, can you maybe unshare the slide here? That way it'll pop us up bigger for everyone else just here for a second. And then we can bounce it back up. If you
want to try it again, or
slide.
leave it, or you want to leave it alone?
No, it's perfect. I think we got it. So let me, at least I'm pinned right now. So anyways, but so I think, let me come back because you just hit a bunch of things is exactly where I wanted to get to, which is those questions that you were just rattling off that the investors are typically asking, which is what I'm thinking. And I know a lot, you got a couple hundred people here on live right now. There's gonna be thousands that'll watch this that are thinking, okay, if I want to invest in, let's say, mineral rights, and one of the big distinctions you made is you're owning a percent titled. oil and gas mineral rights.
Correct.
I'm not owning like 0.001% of a LLC and a fund that then owns something.
Asset
Um,
ownership. It's asset ownership title with the purchase sale agreement. It's yours in perpetuity forever.
yeah, which a lot of people love, right? They want to make sure that you're more connected to the asset, less risk of fraud because I own it directly. It can't be sold out from under me. If it's going to be sold, I got to be participating in that, right? I don't have to sign
Yep.
on that thing.
You can also
Um,
fire Eckard. It's your asset. If you say, I don't like Troy, go assign my minerals out. I think Troy's an idiot, so sign my interest. Okay, I'll sign it out in the courthouse. I'll give you your fractional
yeah.
share of minerals. You get your check directly from Exxon or Chevron.
So
Doesn't
do
matter.
many companies do it like you do? Is
Zero.
this
None
nobody
do it.
else does it this way? They just do it in the fund model,
Well,
which
you
is,
have to. If you're going to charge somebody 2 and 300% of the cost,
yeah.
and you have to have this. Look, just keep in mind, Matt, you're experienced like I am. The thicker the document, the more the sponsor's screwing you. It's a fact because
Well,
why?
it's written for them, I mean, it's written for
It's
favor
written
them.
for them,
Yeah.
but most investors don't understand. They go, "Oh, I own an apartment complex." No, you don't. You own an LLC interest. Hey, I own this drilling program. No, you don't. You own a piece of a program, and
Yeah.
in there's 48 pages of how you have no rights, no control. They can sell it, they can encumber, they can borrow against it, and you're going, "Wow."
Yeah.
So use the picture behind you. Okay, this is important. The building behind you.
Hmm.
If each one of
That's
those
our office,
individual,
by the way.
I love that office. But if each individual window set in that office, let's say, was a mineral tract that Eckerd bought, we don't want you to guess which window has the gold bars in it. What we'll do is we'll buy 20% of window one, 5% of window two. We'll put that into a portfolio. Eckerd buys it and titles it in our name. We take all the risk, and then we say, partners, investors, we've got a $7.5 million portfolio. If you put in $76,000, you own 1% of minerals in all 30 of those tracts with 9 oil companies and 47 wells. And guess what? In your purchase sale agreement, there's an exhibit that gives you the deeds and the titles and the restrictions and ownership. And it says Eckerd's only managing it for you. So don't worry about Eckerd filing bankruptcy. And what happens is you now own real estate on your balance sheet. It's tangible, it's real, it's subject to 1031, it's subject to you being able to sell it or buy it. And by the way, we've also created an app that is state of the art that allows you to actually go sell your alternative investment to other partners on what we call our P2P or partner to partner app. We're the only alternative asset class that has that.
Yeah.
Back to your point, though, which I think is really critical, investors just, they have the wrong perception. They think by being in a group, they're safe. If I'm in a partnership, I'm safe. That's not true. It's like us all getting into a lifeboat when the Titanic goes down. You're safe until you close your eyes and they eat all your food and shove you overboard at night with a chopped liver around your neck so the sharks eat you. You're only safe when you get with somebody who has the same risk model as you, who has the expertise as you, who's transparent as you need to be, and he puts you in the position of saying, I'm not tied to the anchor. I can get away if I have to.
Hmm.
And I think it's really critical. So we do our working interest the same way, and we do our mineral the same way. It is direct working interest and it's direct mineral. It is deed and title. And then we give you all the deeds and titles online in our app. Here it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah. We see them here in our office all the time. We have a lot of clients, of course, with Eckerd assets in their IRAs.
Yeah.
So, and we're seeing those like actual recorded documents. Which is very unique. So how does the fee work? I mean, that's the question. I know I don't even have to look in the chat and the Q&A. If I'm buying mineral rights, let's say, what is the management fee that Eckerd's charging?
So we don't charge a management fee. We don't have an equity earn in and we don't have an equity back in. So what I do, using your beautiful building again,
Mm-hmm.
we will look at the financial model of each mineral that we buy, and every mineral has a different level of maturity. So here's how it works. If you have an established producing well that's been on 3 or 4 years, well, the flush production, kind of like opening a brand new Coke, a lot of that fizzes out. They've taken a lot of reserves. Now you can actually cash flow model that. Let's say I pay $1 for a producing well that's 4 to 5 years old. Okay. If I have that particular window or that floor of your building, and I know that it's so full of oil and gas, they're going to drill another 4, 8, or 10 wells, and the oil company's already nominated those wells to be drilled. It's permitted, it's forthcoming. It's just a matter of when they get to the next 6 or 12 months. Well, that dollar oil well now needs about $2 or $3 because I got 5 or 6 more wells that have been permitted and notified, right? So the maturity or the entitlement of minerals drives the price. So the way Eckerd makes our money is that we'll look at the different positions. We go buy with our money and take the risk, and we say we're going to blend building floor number 2, window number 3 at $1,
Hmm.
$1.50 on window number 5. We put it into a portfolio and we make a gross profit on that because what we do is we blend it together. Now, this is the most important part. When we started, we were mainly dealing with what I would call kind of less sophisticated, high net worth investors. In the last 5.5 years, we're at about 2,500 clients now, and our clients are made up of geologists, presidents of oil companies, petroleum engineers, landmen, who are investing in our minerals because they said, what Troy's been able to do is aggregate capital from individual investors and use that as a buying power stroke to get those minerals bought and acquired cheaper than if they could go buy them themselves. And so our entire goal as a company is, can we piecemeal a portfolio together and deliver it to the investors at a lower price than they could go buy those minerals on their own? And the answer has been yes. So we make a spread between what I buy and what we deliver. And that has allowed us to be probably the #1 cash buyer in minerals in Oklahoma. And we now are a pretty formidable force in the Permian Basin. Right now, we're negotiating a $170 million mineral package. And the owner of that came to us because they said, we need a buyer that we can count on closing in 60 days. And the deal we're about to cut is going to be a phenomenal acquisition price with my fee in it. But they came to us because there's not anybody else out there with cash. So your answer is, we make a spread between the buy and the ask.
Got it. Okay.
And we have no trailing management fee. We don't charge equity. We don't have a back end. You write a check one time, Matt, and you're done. There is no more anything to Eckard. We own minerals. You own minerals in the same assets. We don't cherry pick. We don't hold back.
Yeah.
What we own, you own.
So who's sending me the check? Let's say I buy some mineral rights, and I'm, with this comes monthly or quarterly, or who
It
is
comes every
sending me
month.
the check?
Every month. So the way Exxon works, every single acre of land in the United States that's privately held, there's a mineral owner attached to it. Exxon drills a well. They sell the oil to Valero. They sell their gas to Kinder Morgan, and they get their gross check at the end of the month. The first thing that Exxon accountant says is 20% of that revenue is not mine. It belongs to minerals. I have a fiduciary duty to set that money aside, and it goes as royalty distribution of minerals, right? Well, if Eckard owns mineral acreage in each one of the windows in your building, we're getting checks in from all these different oil companies, right? We then have gross checks according to the number of mineral acres that we have acquired. Those checks come in, and then we have an ownership deck that says Matt, Troy, Tom, Susie, Bobby, we all own a piece of that, and we get our percentage. It is the simplest accounting you'll ever check. It's simple to audit, it's simple to review, and it's simple to track. Because the oil, when it's sold, is reported by digital processing solar panels. The state of Oklahoma or Texas knows how much oil and gas was sold every day. The people buying it have to report how much is sold oil and gas every day, blah, blah, blah. So you got like 5 checkpoints. So when we get those gross checks and then we put it in our accounting deck, we distribute all mineral revenue on the 25th of the month, all participation in drilling the 20th of the month, and every new program goes out on the 10th of the month. We've done 69 distributions in a row without a single missed distribution. We've sent out almost $150 million in the last 60 months. This year, 2025, I think we'll send out 75 to 100 million this year alone. No cost, no bills, no expenses. It is the craziest thing I've ever experienced in 40 years. I've always told my wife, if I could ever figure out how to buy the mineral rights and be at the top of the food chain, that's all I would do. Well, you couldn't do that because 60% of the time you were dry holes, which condemned your minerals. It was just as risky as drilling, right? Now I can go buy mineral rights and I'm making money within 6 months. I'm getting my first check and I will get checks for the next 25 to 100 years. But I also bought a pen of pregnant rabbits because every mineral tract we're buying, we know there's going to be 4, 8, 24, 90 more wells drilled on the same minerals at different depths over the next 25, 50 years. I've got minerals I've had for 30 years that are still writing me checks. I don't even know who the oil company is anymore.
Yeah.
I've never missed a revenue check.
So as I'm buying in there, I must be, because I've got this deeded interest, there must be an agreement that I'm saying, all right, well, process the payment because I got whatever percentage of this deeded interest
Yeah.
to Eckard. Eckard's getting all of them from the different oil companies, determining which piece is mine versus someone else that might have a percentage in this. And then
keep in mind, and this again is just because you haven't been in the business. The way it works these days is because these shale basins are such these great big canyons. The state of Oklahoma and the state of North Dakota and Texas, they have permitted units. Like there was a permit for your building to be built. They said everything within that permit, offset, structures, all the rules and regulations, you're only going to be able to develop the vertical improvements where that permit is. Each well is given a section of land, 2 square miles, 1 square mile, half a square mile. You have permit. The old saying was Billy Saul Estes was known for drilling under other people's properties and draining the reserves. That doesn't happen anymore because
Yeah.
now the drill bits are being run by triangulation off satellite. They know exactly within an inch of where those drill bits are, right? So what happens is in Oklahoma, Exxon permits a well. It's going to go out 1 mile horizontally. It covers 640 acres. You and I might own 6.4 acres of minerals, 1%. It doesn't matter. We don't have to be in the right section, the right location. We don't have to be next door. Any oil and gas inside that square mile is paid proportionate mathematically our share. So you take that 6.4 acres, and let's say me, you, and 10 other investors own that 6.4 acres. That check comes in for 6.4. We divide it by our equal participation if it was equal. And we say, Matt, here's your check, here's mine. You can track it back to every barrel of oil, every single molecule of gas has been sold, has been reported by the buyer of the oil and gas to the oil company and transferred to us. It's 66 million line items of accounting each month we send out with the detail of every transfer of oil and gas sold on every mineral acre in 7,000 wells. But you can audit it anytime you want to.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
All right. I know there's people got questions here, but I got two more. Okay. I got two more. Then we're going to go to the listeners' questions here. So you talked about some of the different tax benefits here. One being which I can sell real estate and 1031 into oil and gas because I'm getting this deeded interest. Okay. The other is this intangible drilling cost tax deduction, which is giving me that benefit. And this is something, if you were doing this, you're wanting that tax incentive, and again, the 1031 would mostly be outside your IRA. So, because I sell real estate in my IRA, there's no gain anyway. So, but on the IDs, the intangible drilling cost, this is I need to make sure I understand what I'm buying though. Like, how do I know when I'm looking at an oil and gas opportunity, whether this qualifies for that tax benefit, the IDC, or not?
Well, it's pretty simple. What the IRS did in 1986 with the Tax Reform Act, they said, look, if you're at risk and you invest in a calendar year, there are certain parts of drilling that are considered intangible, which is like labor, fluids, the cost of drilling. And there's tangible. Tangibles like equipment, pipe, wellheads, pump jacks. And they said, based on the allocation on the well, you'll get to write an accelerated write-off for the intangibles in year one, which everybody wants to do. They want to take that big write-off. You'll depreciate your equipment, and you'll deplete your leasehold position or your geology. So eventually, over 7 years, you'll get the whole thing written off. President Trump came in 2017. He said, I'm going to make it all 100% deductible the first year. So that went on until about 2 years ago. I believe he's going to reinstate that again. I think he's going to go back to that bonus depreciation, give 100% write-off, so we'll drill more wells, which is great news for those of us like to drill, right? So the idea today is a horizontal well is about 80% of what goes on in a horizontal well is going to be intangible. It's labor, horizontal drilling, fracking, the sand, et cetera. So if I put $1 million in, I'm going to have about an $800,000 deduction off my gross income this year. And I'll go to my CPA and say, I got an $800,000 deduction. They're going to tell me what kind of income I made and how I can allocate that. If we just use straight up income and my tax rate's 37%, I'm going to save 37% of $800,000. Now, here's the funny part. What happens is because these wells are so big of wells in the first 12 or 24 months, most of our clients never see the other 20% of the tax deduction because they're already getting their money back. The money's coming back so fast, they don't get to deplete the rest of the interest, et cetera. Now, when I think about tax deduction, I think this is really critical to your viewing audience. And Matt, I want you to remember this as well. Every single promoter out there rings a dinner bell and they scream tax deductions for every investor because people panic. And they're like, I got to have a deduction. And what has happened is they think if I drill a well, I'm better off doing that and putting in $1 million than just paying my $370,000 in taxes. And I'm going to tell you, and I want every one of your listeners to write this down. You drill wells to make money. The tax deduction is just an extra benefit. It's a big benefit. It's a valuable benefit. But here's the deal. Why would I give you $1 million to save $370,000 if I lose the other $630,000? It makes no sense.
Right.
Now, I like the idea that we have this kind of tax situation because here's why. If I participate in a well with Exxon, they don't get a tax deduction. They truly need all $10 million for that $10 million well back. But I get to drill at 63% of exposure because I have the tax benefit. So they're huge tax write-offs. Whether you drill a dry hole or a good well, it's the same tax benefits. So focus on making money. And that's
Yeah.
what we've done. We've averaged over 31% cash on cash return across all of our drilling programs. Some of our programs have made almost 3 or 3.5 times their money in less than 5 years. We've not had but one bad well in the last 6 years because we, Eckard, we buy the wells that we want to drill, and we buy enough to say, partners, how much money do you need to invest as far as write-off? We need 5 million. Okay, well, we're going to take 2 million. We'll give you guys 3 million. Let's go drill together. We're using the largest working interest participant because I'm drilling with my own money. That's why our clients are doing so well. I'm extremely picky where Troy invests Troy's money.
Yeah. Love it. All right. Well, let's get to the listener questions here for the last 5 minutes. Tristan, what do we got?
Yeah. Okay. All right. We'll start with Troy here. We've got a lot of loaded questions, so I'll try to make them easy.
Everybody's got
and
some
roll.
opinion in their
Yeah,
question. This is a statement, not a question.
Right. We'll start from the easy ones. All right. What is the minimum investment for your guys'?
So our minimum investment, simple answer is most mineral portfolios is $25,000 per mineral portfolio. On the drilling side, it's 25,000, but I will tell you, you can't build a house with one brick. So we generally say our minimum per portfolio is 25. We're really looking for investors that can afford to invest over a 12 or 18-month period, $250,000. I can't build you a portfolio with one brick. But what I've learned over the years, sometimes that one brick leads to a guy who's got $10 million to invest. So you don't act arrogant, you're humble, you're grateful. But I just want everybody to know, if you're only going to put 25,000 in and see how it works out, you're better off buying public stock or doing something else. You're just wasting your time and ours. And quite frankly, we're about to cross $1 billion in capital in the next 30 days. And what we want to do is not be too big for our britches. We want you to know our structure is based on how we can best serve you and achieve that financial goal.
And they need to be accredited investors.
Always a credit. We only deal with a credit.
Right.
Yep.
Okay. Awesome. All right, Matt, this one's for you. Do you lose all tax benefits if investing within an IRA or a solo 401k?
Okay. Do you lose all tax benefits? Well, this is where we're talking about the IDC, and this is where there's different types of investments in oil and gas or opportunities when you're doing it. So like Eckard will have more maybe other operators where it's just, this is a more mineral rights royalty play. There's no drilling costs into this type of well at this point. And so you're coming in, we know this is a producing well, let's say, so to speak, and I'm generalizing here. You can clean this up on the oil and gas side, Troy, but at this point you're investing and I'm just putting money in hope and getting a return on the investment, which is going to be royalty income going back into my IRA. There's no UBIT, no UDFI, there's no tax negatives, but there's no tax benefits either. The IDC is, that has to be more qualifying and making sure you're clear when you're investing. If you're trying to get that tax deduction that we were talking about there, that 80 to 90% could go up here with the Trump administration, which is only a tax deduction. Remember, as Troy was talking about, there's not a tax credit. Okay, it's only a tax deduction here. But you have to make sure if you're chasing that and doing it on your personal side, that you are being clear that the opportunity you're investing in, they're going to incur those types of costs so that you will be able to get that deduction. And also,
well, the other thing is, Matt, to answer that part, most of these oil and gas companies will do what they call a turnkey, which means it's a fixed price. And the problem with that is if you get an IRS audit, you find out they charge you $24 million for a well that cost $8 million. The IRS is going to come back and say you didn't have the intangible write-offs for basically 75% of your deduction. Most investors invest because they think under a turnkey, at least I don't have any exposure for cost overruns. And I did see a couple of questions pop up about, have you done a background check on me? You have to just Google my name and see I've been around since 1985 with my fingerprints on file with the FBI. I had one lawsuit about 15 years ago because I caught a family of mine that put $20 million in stealing my leases and my interest, and I sued them. And other than that, I've had zero complaints, zero violations, no cease and desist, clean as a whistle. Because why? I'm an absolute adamant about the way I do things. The other question I saw, Matt, that I want to answer because it did pop up, makes sense, is at least it seems like most people pitch oil and gas in the fall. Well, they do because you act like a bunch of starving children the last 6 months of the year because you want tax write-offs, so you'll give your money to a liar, crook, cheater, or thief. The truth is, we're probably funded for 2025 all the way to August already because our clients are smart, and what they understand is if you invest in oil and gas truly as an investment asset class where you're going to be able to tell your CPA January the 10th, I've already put $1 million in, I've got my quarterly estimates covered, now I'm managing whatever I might earn in additional capital in the year. Most investors panic. They wait to the last 3 or 4 months. So the sharks know that, and they come out of the woodwork the last 45 days. and then you guys throw your money. We literally had 85 brand new accredited investors in the last 7 days a year. People calling me, Matt, saying, I got $1 million tax bill. Can I
Yeah.
give you 2 million? I said, do you want to ask a question? Nope. I saw your video. I'm going to send you 2 million. I go, and that's why these people lose their money, is because they're doubting Thomases. They don't focus on what's real. And then what they do is they rush to make
Yeah.
decisions that can be life changing, which they can't do.
Yeah, and I think any investment that has a tax benefit, I don't care what this is. You could be doing real estate to try and do a cost segregation, and you're a real estate professional. This could be oil and gas. This could be solar. This could be some of the tech stuff. It doesn't matter. Like the asset you have to be investing. This is like dessert. The tax benefit's like a little thing in addition to it, but it's not the reason that you do it. But it's important to know those things too. I mean, we're freaking tax lawyers here too in my
Yeah.
law firm. So we like those things and we like those incentives because it can help us differentiate on the margins between making certain types of investments.
Well, if you're successful with the well, Matt, it totally changed your dynamics on your rate of return, because if I've got the tax write-off and I got a
Yeah.
great well, man, that rate of return is off the chart, which is what I focus on. I mean, I
Yeah.
want the tax write-offs, but I want to make money more than I want to write off.
Yeah, and let me say this on the due diligence question someone asked either is, with anything, we're not doing any due diligence on people. Troy's been recommended to us by other people, but we're not recommending or endorsing anyone or saying invest with Troy or Eckard. I mean, everybody counts it directed IRA as self-directed. It's up to you to do that. And you can do that with anybody, with Troy or his team or any other person in the
Right.
oil and gas or other space you may look at. Ask those questions. Any one of those companies or operators doing that has had to go through that hundreds of times. And do your own due diligence. You can search people's backgrounds, and Troy mentioned the easy Google search, and
Go
so
to page 3 and 4, because page 1 and 2 they paid for. And the other thing, Matt, add to that,
Yeah.
when you ask the questions, folks, ask them in writing, because what happens is people who are committing fraud will tell you what they want to hear. Then when you find out they've ripped you off, they say, oh, you misunderstood me. But if you put it in writing, it's fraud with intent, which is criminal. So I always say, if you want to ask questions, give me 10 questions. I'll answer them in writing. And if you don't like the questions, don't invest in me. But if I don't answer them in writing, you should hang the phone up and delete and block, because guess what?
Yeah.
Where there's smoke, there's fire.
Yeah, and I think the last thing I would just say, just in some general rules of thumb on due diligence, and we've done podcast episodes, and I've got articles written on due diligence, top 10 lists and things to do, checklists, stuff like that, is you really are, particularly in any private investment or anything alternative asset, the person you're working with and is really critical in making that analysis and understanding their track record. Where have they been?
Right.
And newer operators, you certainly have more risk. I mean, I look at that for myself and my own investments. Any client I'm ever talking to is we're advising and doing due diligence as their lawyer and helping them in that. We're looking at what can I analyze to know. And sometimes a brand new person out of the woodwork, there's not a lot you can analyze there because they don't
Right.
have a track record where there would have been problems or exposures in the past. So, but hopefully that's helpful to that person. Did you have anything else, Tristan? Final question for Troy? Anyone that's common in there? Or
there's a lot of
anything else, Troy,
loaded
you wanted to
questions. There
see?
might be a good for Troy's investment team. There's a guy, he's asking, are we still looking at an energy transition squeeze between now and 2030, and how will Trump and technology impact this? We got another one. Any fun speculation on the opportunities if the USA picks up Greenland?
Yeah, a lot of big
lots
picture
of those
stuff. You can speculate.
You know
on
what?
any of
If
that,
you
Troy.
guys want to copy, if you want to take those questions, if you have a way of capturing it, if you'll send it to me, I will take the time to answer every question, give it back to you in a written text. You can send it out to your viewers and listeners.
Yeah, in fact, if you have, I don't know if you have contact info, or we can figure out how to do that. But any final words, anything you else had, Troy, or any questions you saw you wanted to hit?
Yeah, I'm going to just tell everybody this. You still have a liquidity crisis. Commercial real estate still got a big problem. Trump says drill, baby, drill, except for one thing. We don't have equipment. We don't have manpowers. We don't have rigs. So if he grows the economy like he says he's going to grow it, the only problem he's got is he won't have the same luxury he did in 2016 where he drove the price of oil down to $55 a barrel. We are maxed out as an industry. We don't have the people or equipment. So if this economy grows, and he's going to do it, guess what? We're going to have a really big pull on supply, and demand's going to go up. Commodity prices are going to go up big time. So whether you invest with me or not, you must look at energy in your portfolio. You got to find a great tax planner, great tax lawyer. Let me tell you, if you're not being proactive, being smart, you're basically watching a hole in the side of your ship because it's sinking and you don't even know it. You got to find the very best. Don't be cheap on professional skill sets. Matt, thank you for everybody having me on today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks so much, Troy. I'm sure we're going to have him back, maybe at an alt asset summit again, so you can meet Troy in person. And Eckard's website, or where can people go for more information? Did we drop that into the chat? Okay, that'll be dropped into the chat. What is the website, Troy?
It's EckardEnterprises.com. So it's
Okay,
just
easy enough.
www.EckardEnterprises.com. You can sign up under Eckard Insights, which is our app. It gives you exposure to all of our thousands of hours of videos and training and education. And folks, I'll help you with other deals. If you're not investing with me, you still have a problem, call me, because quite frankly, we're a very small group of sophisticated investors, and all the hyenas are looking to pick us off. So let's be smart. Let's find information. Let's not be gullible. It's going to be very precarious the next 2 years, because a lot of people out there can't figure out how to screw you out of fees, and they're surrounding you. You just don't know it yet.
Yeah, well, thanks so much, Troy. Thanks for being on. Thanks everyone for being on today. If you missed any portion of this, keep in mind this will be recorded and posted at directedira.com/webinar. And we will see you next time. Until then, stay